Hello and welcome to my kitchen. Today is a Tuesday talk with Hannah, and we are going to be making wild greens pesto. And so I'm in my kitchen at home. The cell signal here is not as good, or the Wi-Fi is not as good as at my office, so I hope that this can broadcast well. And I'm really excited to share with you this wild greens adventure because wild greens are so incredibly potent and powerful medicines in our lives. And when we think about food being our medicine, this is where it's at. This springtime, vibrant, green, revitalizing, liver cleansing, highly nutritive gifts from the earth. They're really, really amazing. So before I make anything, I want to introduce you to the 3 wild greens that I have in my kitchen today. And the invitation here is for you to discover what edible greens grow wild where you are, and to find where you can harvest them that isn't polluted. So you don't want to harvest along roadsides because that is where traffic and all the exhaust from cars and stuff gets put into the soil. We don't want that. We don't want to harvest from grounds that are sprayed with things like Roundup or any herbicide or pesticide, because we don't want to be putting those things into our bodies. So we really want to find land. Hopefully there's some land where you are that you can protect, that's not getting polluted, and therefore the things growing there are not polluted. So we happen to live on a beautiful homestead in Floyd where we don't use anything toxic, and so all of what I'm going to share with you was harvested basically right outside my front door today. And well, the chickweed came from the garden, which is actually growing up, and we're having to pull it out as we're planting our garden beds. Which is great because it's like we already have a harvest coming in even before we're planting our crops, our intentionally planted crops for the year, which is pretty cool. So let me introduce you. The main ingredient we're going to be using today is chickweed. And maybe I'll grab a few strands here. So chickweed is, let me come around here and show this to you. So chickweed is this plant that is really beautiful, and it has a sweet little flower. Here's some little buds that are getting ready to open up. The flowers look like stars, and sometimes it's called the star sister plant. It's got these beautiful kind of rounded leaves and this succulent stalk, so you can kind of squish it and it's juicy inside. So chickweed is going to be our main ingredient. I recently wrote about chickweed, so you can check that out on my blog or social media posts. Chickweed is also like I mentioned before, all of these greens are liver cleansers, high in vitamins and essential minerals. So they're pulling up from the earth the nutrients. And these wild greens are way more nutritive than any greens you could buy in the grocery store. So we might be focused on like eat more kale in your diet, or Swiss chard, or arugula, or whatever. There's nothing really in terms of what gives you very like just amazing nutrients. Also that prana, that life force that is so key for us having radiant energy and feeling enlivened by our lives. We get that in part through our food. So if we're eating dead or dumb food, meaning food that's processed or old or has lots of additives, basically isn't prana rich, then we're not sustaining that same energy in ourselves. So it's really great to use things like chickweed. So I'm going to be using this recipe that's out of the detox cookbook. Those of you that are doing the detox, it's on page 27. The basic recipe for this is 3 cups of wild harvested chickweed, nettles, or dandelion greens. And I'm going to add another wild edible to this today. So we're going to do 3 cups. And here's my food processor. I've just put it up here so it's easy to see. And so we're just going to put a bunch of, I'm actually just going to rip. This is way more than we need for this demo today. This chickweed here, so I'm just going to kind of sort through it a little bit here. And another thing that can be, well, there's like a little straw in here too, right? So just kind of sorting through and making sure it's actually all chickweed, dead grass, that the trash can is right over here, by the way. I should probably be putting it in the compost, but I can make a little pile. So yeah, some other things to think about too is like a lot of times when we're buying our vegetables, we often think we need to peel them or like wash them heavily. You know, these have just been rinsed in our well water. So I'm gonna just put so those of you that have cooked with me, you know that I don't generally measure a whole lot. Oh, here, you can see that I'm an eyeballer. You can see the little flowers. Let's see if I can, I don't know if that will, can you see these little flowers of I wish this had like a zoom, little flowers of the chickweed. And those are great to eat as well. You don't want to use anything that's brown or kind of past its prime. This time of year, it's like everything's just growing. And so, you know, if you keep doing this for weeks, you'll start to notice, you know, these chickweed plants are starting to get brown and stuff. We don't want to use those pieces. So, you know, picking out the good elements here. And feel free to ask questions in the chat if you're watching live or if you're watching the replay. You can let me know what your questions are. So chickweed is really, well, so it's cleansing. It's an extractive food, meaning that it clears out the tissues. And it also has lots of great vitamins and minerals, as I said before. So actually those don't look as good. We have so much here, so I'm not feeling like I need to use all of it. And you know, when we're using wild plants, we don't have that same like, well, I spent lots of money on this kind of experience if you're harvesting them. And so it's just like this total gift from the earth. And if we look at the flow of what's available seasonally in the earth, from the earth, and how each of the seasonal offerings are in alignment with what we need, our gut biome changes throughout the seasons, and we need to be eating different types of foods, different nutrients at different times of the year. And this is something that Western, I don't think that's actually chickweed. That's a different shaped leaf. This is something that, you know, in modern medicine, there's not a whole lot of awareness around yet. There's some, but that we don't do well to eat the same things year round. That we need a variety that's in alignment with the natural world to support our microbiome So that's really exciting. Okay, so here's some, and hopefully this won't come back to haunt me that I didn't chop this up very much. Sometimes it can get kind of stringy in the food processor. We'll see here. Okay, so the next plant I'm gonna put in here, and these might sting me, are stinging nettles. So let me bring nettles around here. So this is stinging nettles. So this was just harvested. We intentionally grow stinging nettles. Nettles was my first herbal ally. And I started studying Western herbalism, and I started drinking nettles infusion every day, and suddenly my allergies went away. And I was like, huh, that's really interesting. I started drinking nettles infusion simply to nourish my blood after getting off of birth control pills when I was in my 20s. And I was like, ugh, I don't want this stuff in my system. So nettles has these, I don't know if you can see, but these little tiny hairs that are on the backs of the leaves and on the stem. And those little tiny hairs, if they get into your skin, they burn like fiberglass or like a little stinger. And this is what makes nettles such a potent medicine, is that it is a natural antihistamine because it creates a histamine response in your body. Nettles are also very high in calcium, so they have more calcium than milk. And high in iron, all your leafy green B vitamins. They're so they really nourish the blood, and they're just amazing. I love you, nettles. I think if there was ever such a thing as like a nettles council, like promotional council, I would want to be on it. It's a really, really amazing plant. So we're gonna put some nettles in the pesto, and you might be like, that sounds really dangerous, Hannah, stinging something in your pesto. But the thing is, when it gets chopped up and blended up with some other things, it's no longer stingy. And that's what's really cool. So we also dry the nettles and then make infusion. I drink nettles infusion every day this time of year, both for nourishment and for allergy care. I used to be on allergy prescriptions out the wazoo, and now I don't take anything, but I do my nettles every day during the spring. Just a little, like I do a cup or something of nettles tea, nettles infusion every day. Okay, so there's nettles, and I didn't harvest any dandelion for today. However, and I do have to give gratitude to David for harvesting the plants that we have here, because I've been busy doing other things this morning. So we have nettles and chickweed in our food processor. And then the third wild edible that we have today is ramps. Now, ramps, these are just the leaves of the ramp. So a ramp is a wild leek. So it's kind of a cross between onion and garlic. It's very pungent, like spicy. And they grow with bulbs in the ground, but we usually do not harvest those bulbs. So we're just harvesting the leaves so the bulbs can keep growing and producing more and more leaves. So they grow with two leaves coming up together. And we usually just cut off one of those leaves, leave the other one, and then that other one can, a new shoot will come up and grow. So we want to sustainably harvest anything that we're harvesting. So the ramps grow out in the woods, kind of in sunny patches along the river is where we find them, but they're in amongst the trees. So for this recipe calls for 3 cups wild harvested greens and then 2 cloves of garlic. So I do have some garlic here just to say you can use garlic, right? And in place of these, if you don't have wild edibles that you can just be like, yeah, let me throw those in the food processor, you can, of course, use things that you have bought or that you're growing, like spinach, kale, certainly basil is the traditional pesto ingredient, main pesto ingredient. So, you know, be creative with this. What do you find that you can make a pesto out of? Okay, so I'm gonna put ramps in here instead of garlic. Okay, so it's gonna be a totally wild greens pesto. So I'm just gonna put a bunch of these ramps in here. I love ramps, and you know, one of the things about learning to live an Ayurvedic lifestyle is eating in rhythm with the seasons, is that things aren't available all year round, right? And at first we might be like, well, I don't like that. I want to be able to eat whatever I want to, whenever I want to, because that's kind of how our culture lives. When we start living in alignment with what's available right now, there's a joy and an appreciation. Like ramps are only available during this time of the year. They don't keep very well, like we can't freeze them or can them very well. And it's like, this is the chance to have ramps right now and to just delight in that. And then next April, we'll get to have them again. And going through those seasons of like, you know, where our strawberry plants are really like growing and no fruit yet, but it's like soon it will be strawberry season, but then it won't be, right? And we don't need to keep being like, let's buy lots and lots of strawberries or put lots of strawberries in all of our dishes. That's when we get to have strawberries. So I think it's nice just in that connectivity piece to just be aware of like, this is the season of, you know, so this is the season of chickweed and nettles and rams, and we can make a really, really delicious pesto with all of them. So our recipe is 3 cups of the wild harvested greens, a half a cup of soaked nuts. So that could be almonds, walnuts, or pecans, or if you happen to have pine nuts, that can work. I'm soaking nuts in this cup, and I'm going to drain them out and put them in our food processor. So we soak the nuts to remove some of the tannins that are in there, so it makes them more digestible and more bioavailable. Yay, we like that. So there are our walnuts. And then we're gonna do 1/4 to a half a cup of olive oil. So I might start with 1/4 cup here. So this is organic, extra virgin, organic olive oil. One thing about oils, I have a very sensitive nose to rancidity, so it's important to me to always smell and make sure that it smells like how it should smell. Getting olive oil in glass bottles that are dark is very helpful too, to keep the oils from going rancid. So this olive oil smells great. This is a new bottle that we just got recently. And I'm gonna put a half a cup, 2 1/4 cups in. Excellent. So we have that, and then the next thing is 2 cloves of garlic. So I'm gonna skip that, but if you're making this and you don't happen to have ramps, you can put in 2 cloves of garlic. And then we're gonna do a dash of lemon juice. And so you can decide if you like your pesto to be lemony. This is a nice, pretty big organic lemon from our grocery store. I don't particularly love lemony pesto. A little hint is nice, but the thing that the lemon helps with is from it turning, like it'll keep the greens green, right? So I'm just gonna put just a little squirt of that lemon in there, and then salt and pepper to taste. So we keep our mineral salt just in a little bowl on our stove, and I'm just gonna, of course, I'm not measuring much here, just gonna put some of that in there, and then a little pepper. So this is interesting too, right? So we already have the pungency or the spiciness of the ramps in there, or the garlic if you're using that. And the pepper adds another digestive support. It kindles the agni, the digestive fire. So you can decide how spicy you want it. And if you're more kapha predominant, even, you might even put in like a little cayenne, a little dash of like a spicier spice. Oh, I can't quite read that. Sue just asked a question. Can you what? Can you spell the third? Oh, stars. Yes, it's ramps. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like an on-ramp on the highway, ramps. Right? But it's a wild green. Thank you, Star. So I'm gonna mix all of this up. We'll see how this goes in this food processor. We might even need a little more liquid. We'll see. I think I added more than 3 cups of greens. So let's see. You might cover your ears. This is kind of loud. Stop this here and open it up and scrape down the edges where it didn't get mixed up, but that looks like, oh, it smells amazing. And that's I'm gonna give it another round of mixing here. One more time, just to get it really, really thoroughly mixed up. And there's all sorts of different, food processors, blenders, you probably see behind me. We also have a Vitamix. You could easily do this in a Vitamix or a Ninja, a Bullet, whatever you have. All right, that looks pretty good. I don't know if you all can see this. Oh my goodness, it smells amazing. So you can see that mixed up in there. I'm gonna taste a little bit. Oh my goodness, so good. So many flavors, so tasty. So I'm very excited to have this for lunch today. And you might wonder, what are you going to have it on? I'm not just gonna eat the whole thing of pesto as my lunch. So I wanted to show you something so a lot of times we have pesto on pasta, right? Which is one way to do this. During the springtime, especially, we're not wanting to eat as many grains. And through the detox, I was just telling David actually before doing this that I have definitely been eating a lot less grain. I haven't cut it out totally, but less grain during the detox, and it feels really good. So today I was like, I'm making this pesto. What should we have it on for lunch? And I said, do you want me to make pasta? And Dave was like, I don't really want to eat pasta. And the pasta that we make is the Spirals rice pasta, which is lovely. So it's gluten-free. But what I decided to make, and I started doing this, and then I was like, I'll show this on camera, is these sweet potato spirals. So this is a spiralizer. And if you don't have one, you could also just use a vegetable peeler and do strips and then turn your vegetable. And you might want to get one of these. They're not a huge investment. So basically this pushes it through, and you can choose different sizes of noodles and things. Hold it down here. So you can see it's making these sweet potato noodles, right? And so what I'll do when I'm done here is I'm going to heat up my cast iron pan with some ghee in it. And then I'm going to saute these sweet potato noodles. And I've also got a zucchini. So I'll get those sweet potato ones cooking because sweet potato takes longer than zucchini to cook. And then I'll toss in the zucchini with it, cook that up in the ghee, a little salt, maybe a little pepper. And then that is what I will put the wild greens pesto on top of. So again, we're looking to eat more plants, more vegetables, and the wider variety we can have every day, the better. And that's just really exciting. It's like that creative piece of, well, what could we put the pesto on? That's fun for me. I hope it's fun for you too. And getting creative there. So pesto can be used, you could use it in sauces and salad dressings. You could use it on any sort of vegetable toppings. You could have like broccoli and cauliflower and put pesto on top. You could stuff a sweet potato with it. So all sorts of different things. Like, what could you imagine doing with the pesto that you know is super nourishing and supportive for you this spring? So I hope that's really exciting for you. And, you know, I encourage you to look up these plants and do your own research. Find them where you are, again, in places where you know they're not polluted. Find out what they're good for. How do they support your well-being? And then as you're eating them, you can celebrate all that medicine through the food that you're taking in. And let me know how it goes. Cheers to your wild green pesto adventures. Let me see here. Do you wash the pollen dust off the greens before using? Yes. Yes, a quick rinse. Yeah, wonderful. Star says, this was great. Thanks. I've been eating the chickweed in my salads. I really appreciate this pesto recipe. Yes. So chickweed's really the only one that I would recommend putting in salad of the three that I introduced today. The nettles is great to put in soups or stews as well as it cooks in. And dandelion, I'll get to that in 1 minute, Sue. So, and ramps are good in stir fries and things. You can kind of use ramps wherever you would use onions or garlic. So that's kind of fun, but nettles you don't want to eat raw. You either want to cook it or grind it up. The nuts do not need to be raw, and ideally they're soaked. So I don't know what you mean by not raw. What's the alternative that you have? Curious about that. So dandelion is more bitter. It's a deeper liver cleanser, more of a diuretic, although nettles is pretty diuretic as well, meaning that it clears excess water from the body, which is helpful in the springtime. Roasted nuts. Yeah, I would soak them. You could soak the roasted nuts and then rinse them and use them. Ideally though, buying roasted nuts I don't recommend because they usually have not so great oils added to them. If they're just totally dry roasted, then sure. So anyway, I hope that's great. Keep your questions coming. I'll check back on this later and answer any questions. And I hope you all have a really nourishing lunch today. Take care.